Hey everybody, Yuri from Shure here, and we have a very, very special guest for our 100th anniversary here at the NAMM show. Over here we have Chris Schyvinck, CEO of Shure. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, Yuri. It's great to be here this morning, day 3 of NAMM.
Day 3, and I'm so excited. And just a fun aside, my very first time ever meeting you was at the NAMM show. And I've only been at the company for a few months, and we were at the 50 years of hip-hop celebration 3 years ago. And I sit down, one of our colleagues had an open seat, so I was there to celebrate, and you sat right across from me. Mm-hmm. And I go, all right, so I am spending the next hour and a half sitting in front of the CEO of Shure, and whenever I get nervous, I start to make really, really stupid jokes. So I go, all right, well, I need to just be on my best behavior, don't I? And you just look at me and you go, yes, Yuri, yes, you do. And two thoughts were happening in my head. Number one, is she joking along with me? And number two, how does the CEO of the company know my name?
How long did it take for you to figure out if I was joking or serious?
I am not going to lie, I asked a few people. This is not the first time I told this story. And I go, was she playing along? And the answer was, yes, you were. So that was great. So that was my first introduction to Chris. And it's such a great way to show how Shure is as a company, that we can sit across from the CEO and have basic conversations just like we're about to have right now.
Yeah, we all have a lot of shared experiences, and it's very much how the Shures operated the company from the very beginning.
Amazing.
I could actually tell you about my first NAMM.
Ooh, let's hear it.
So I've been at Shure since 1989.
Okay.
So I've been here a while. But my first NAMM was in 1997. So I hadn't been with the company yet for a full decade, and I was trying to advance into management at Shure. I had decided that was the path I wanted to take.
What was your position at that moment?
At that moment, the reason I came to NAMM was I had just been promoted to Vice President of Quality. Okay, so I had grown up in the quality group. I started as a quality engineer, and somewhere along the way I had a couple of trips in my career progression, and so I started to kind of make it clear I wanted to do more, and so I was told I should go get a master's degree.
Okay.
So I was getting my master's degree. I was almost done with it, and the prior VP of quality had left. And somebody decided to just kind of take a wild chance on me instead of going to the outside, which probably would have been the normal thing to do. So I was very fortunate in that regard. And so as part of my sort of immersion into understanding our markets, because I had been inside all the time at Shure, right? Manufacturing and on new product development teams and things like that. So I kind of knew the internal workings of the company, but I really didn't know much about how our products got to market. So I came to NAMM. I was almost finishing my master's degree, and I'd never even been to any trade show before in my life. So I had no idea what to expect. I didn't know.
NAMM was your first trade show.
So NAMM was my first trade show. And so I came back to my fellow students. We were working on a project together for this graduate degree. And they're like, well, what's your trade show like? I'm like, you can't believe what trade shows are like. It's like all the hotels have rock bands playing until 4 a.m. And it's just like, it's just one thing after another. And there's music everywhere. And these musicians walking around, and I saw famous people, and they were all kind of like in complete disbelief, and they were just like, that is not what trade shows are like. They're like, you experience something completely different than what we experience in our industries. So that's when I realized that we are in a unique industry, and we are in, frankly, a pretty fun industry.
Yeah. So when you were growing up, I know you're a musician.
Yes.
How many instruments do you play?
Well, I started with piano lessons when I was 5, and I can still tinker around on the piano a bit. I really should practice that more. I normally will play around the holidays and just play some Christmas carols, things like that. It kind of sucks me back in again. But I started playing the French horn when I was in 5th grade. And I still play French horn today. So I only play the 2 instruments, piano and French horn. But I actually am playing in a community band now. And we have rehearsals every week on Tuesday, and we do about 9 concerts a year. And I can't tell you how much I enjoy that.
And how big is the band?
It's about 80-ish.
Wow.
It fluctuates between 80 to 90 people.
And are you the only French horn, or is there several?
No, there's about 7 of us. We're
Wow.
7 French horns strong.
Great.
Yes.
That's awesome. So then when you were growing up, so you were a musician, you were in this world already. Did you know going to college that I wanted to work in the arts business, the entertainment business?
Absolutely not.
No? What was the original plan?
To be an astronaut.
To be
and I'm
what?
serious. I'm totally serious.
Okay.
So When I went to college, I really wanted to be a pilot/astronaut.
Okay.
And my first year at University of Wisconsin-Madison, I was in the Air Force ROTC.
Wow.
I got a full ride scholarship to go into Air Force, and I was shooting for a pilot slot. And then after that, the pilot slot was going to get me into space. And I really had sights on that. And to this day, I still kind of like pine to get a pilot's license or something, but that day has probably passed me.
You never know.
You never know. You never know. But through the course of my freshman year, like I would walk around every Thursday. You had to wear like your uniform on campus and all this. You had to take extra classes and learn about the history of the Air Force and all the different planes that are in the fleet of the Air Force and everything. And it was interesting. But I had kind of decided at that point that that wasn't the direction I wanted to go after all. I was liking my engineering classes, and I thought, well, it might be nice just to kind of be like a normal engineer in society and kind of see what that looks like. I had also met during my freshman year my now husband.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I wasn't sure if after graduating, if living the military life and being moved around the world was going to make a lot of sense for us either. We got pretty serious pretty fast.
Great.
So everything kind of changed my freshman year. And then I went through and I got my mechanical engineering degree. I took a lot of specialties in quality engineering. And I honestly, this is so embarrassing, I did not know Shure when they came on campus to interview. But I signed up for the interview, and I ended up having, Shure was one of 3 offers that I had coming out of school. I had one with Honda to go down to their huge automotive campus in I think it's called Maryville, Ohio. And it was just fascinating watching cars get built. And I love cars too. So I thought about that really hard and fast. And then there was also an offer up in the Twin Cities where I grew up at a sensor company to put sensors on airplanes.
Ooh.
So there was a little bit of an airplane connection there.
Okay.
But then there was the offer from Shure, and I had the appeal of my interview process of having met people who were also musicians, but they worked at Shure. I found that really interesting, and I felt a connection there that I didn't really feel at the other companies. There was the added benefit that my now husband had already graduated ahead of me, and he was already working in Chicago.
Okay.
So that sealed the deal. And I came down to Chicago from Madison, and I started as a quality engineer at the company.
Gotcha. So when you started out as a quality engineer, did you have, I'm guessing you probably had no idea that CEO was in your future, right?
I had no idea at all. It wasn't even a thought.
And
I barely knew who the executives of the company were. I couldn't figure that out.
I've been here for 3 years, and I still, no, I'm just kidding. And okay, so you became a quality engineer. Were you doing the drop test? Were you doing?
I did the drop test.
Oh, you did the drop
I
test.
did the real one. It's automated now.
Yes.
We did the real drop test where you dropped it from 6 feet onto the hardwood floor 10 times or 12 times. Now I forget the exact number, but yeah.
So was there like a marking on the wall, and you just went up a step ladder and just?
We had like a big measuring stick. I mean, it was truly old school. And we defined like what kind of wood, the hardwood. It was a 3 by 3 foot piece of wood. Literally, it was like a plank floor. And we would just drop the microphones on there. That was a lot of fun. But then I got more involved with the manufacturing facilities and trying to improve like first pass yields through the plants and building quality in as opposed to like testing quality in. That's what you're supposed to do as a good quality engineer. And I got very interested in manufacturing, and I started getting more involved with, that's when I started kind of moving up the ladder in management, was getting more involved with improving processes. And at the time, have you heard of the term lean manufacturing? That's a big term these days, right? Back then, 35 years ago, they called it total quality. That was the big thing, total quality management. And I had some education in that, and I was able to do a lot of training at Shure. I got a lot of broad exposure. And it was through that exposure that I got to have my first time meeting with Mr. Shure, actually.
Okay. I was going to ask you about that. So
I only met him once, but at the time, because TQM was such a tremendously huge management fad, led very heavily by like Motorola in the Chicagoland area. Everybody, all the big auto companies were doing TQM. The USA Today newspaper, in conjunction with Rochester Institute of Technology, had this big competition for the Quality Cup. And companies could try to win this Quality Cup. So I wrote an essay about some major process improvements that we had made to the SM58, which even at that time was an older product. How we made that product much more efficiently through our factories, and we're able to do that with a product that had been in existence for decades.
Yeah.
And I wrote that essay and I sent it in, and you know what? We won a quality cup. And so Mr. Shure was very proud of that. I went to Washington, D.C. to accept the quality cup, and I came back and I was able to present it to him. And he was, I can't tell you how proud he was of us winning that award and getting the recognition for quality. It was a really special moment that I got to meet him for that reason.
That's amazing. Was Mr. Shure pretty hands-on when he was in the building?
Yes. When you just said at the beginning that your first introduction to me, I knew your name.
Yeah.
I would be shamed by Mr. Shure if we were being compared in this moment today. He knew everybody's name. And do you know the story of how he got to learn everybody's name?
I don't.
He was also an avid photographer. It was one of his many hobbies. And he would actually take the photographs of people on their first day of work to be used on their badges. And that's how he got to tie together names with faces. So he would take a picture of Yuri on his first day, and then he would know you're Yuri because he got your badge for you.
Got it.
Now,
That's
he
clever.
wasn't doing that when I started with the company, but it hadn't ended that much earlier than my start. So that's what he did. He wanted to know everybody in the company. He wanted to be involved with new product decisions. And again, the company was at a scale at that point where he could be more involved. He and Mrs. Shure came to a lot of trade shows. They came to NAMM a lot. And they were very familiar with our reps and dealers, and across seas, they knew a lot of our key distributors too. They got to know every facet of the company.
That's great. Yeah, I've always heard stories about how he would just randomly go around the building and just talk to people.
Just talk to people
Yeah.
and see what they were doing.
And not because he was scrutinizing anything. He just
was
wanted
curious.
he just wanted to get to know what was happening. It was great.
Yeah.
And I know after he passed, Rose Shure became chairperson of the company, and you had a pretty good relationship with Rose.
Yeah.
What was working with her like?
So there's one thing I find very fascinating about her. When you think about when SN passed away in 95, she was in her mid-70s at that point. She could have done anything she wanted to, right? She could have just gone and lived anywhere on the planet, and yet she would, for the next 21 years, ran the company and started doing that in her mid-70s. Absolutely fascinating. And she was just an avid learner, and she had been side by side with Mr. Shure all those decades. She knew the business inside and out. She knew all those customers because she went with him to the trade shows. She knew our manufacturing plants because she would go down there for service awards. I walked with her through both our Juarez and Agua Prieta plant in Mexico. The first time I attended the service awards with her, she walked down every single line in the factory and shook every person's hand. And they were crying, some of them. And it was just amazing to see. They were so honored that she would stop and take that time with them. So very much like her husband in wanting to know all of the associates and wanting to just literally touch all of the associates. She was sharp in terms of her business thinking. And I think Mr. Shure was very interested in the technology. She was very interested in keeping the company financially healthy. And I would say when she took over the board, it felt like there was not like an over focus on that, but just like probably a more appropriately balanced focus, that we were worried about keeping the company profitable and thinking about the next generation of products. And she was just a very keen business person. And she was involved with, at the time, the company president. She brought up Sandy LaMantia to be company president. They're the ones that kind of took the chance on me and asked me to be the VP of quality, even though they could have gone to the outside. So I always felt like she kind of took a chance on Sandy. Sandy kind of took a chance on me. And it was interesting how they decided to build kind of a new management team. They brought up some younger people, if you will, and brought in new people from outside the company and just tried to get a fresh blend of people to run the company at that point.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you came from an engineering, most CEOs of companies come from a business background. You started off from an engineering background, and then I know you have your master's degree, and you worked your way to really understanding the business.
Yeah.
Which is just fascinating, because I think that says a lot about how Shure looks at who they promote, how they work through the system kind of thing. We grab them from wherever the best
Yeah,
fit
and
is.
I think Sandy was an engineer too
Was he really?
before
Okay.
me. And then prior to Sandy, it was a man named Mr. Kogan, and he was retiring around the time that Mrs. Shure was taking over. Mr. Kogan was also an engineer. He would be
Amazing.
in the engineering labs all the time and doing the same thing that you just described Mr. Shure as doing. Like lab tours meant he would just walk through and go into the acoustics lab and be like, "What are you working on there? How is that cartridge different than this cartridge over there?"
That's
And
amazing.
yeah,
So we've been an engineering focused company from the beginning.
except for Mr. Shure. He
Right.
wasn't an engineer. His degree was in geography,
Right.
but he was just the most curious person that could ever be met. I don't know if you're aware that I just described photography as a hobby. He was also an avid stamp collector. There's part of his stamp collection that is in the Smithsonian Museum in
Wow.
Washington. So he was very, very active and had a really admirable stamp collection back in the day.
Amazing.
So he was just curious about things and was a natural student. And I think you've seen in our company history wall, you've seen the picture of him when he's probably 10 years old in his
Yep.
backyard in Chicago with his
Yep.
brother and a friend putting together the radio.
Yeah, one of them
kit.
has a newspaper open, and he's just standing there
Yeah.
trying to figure something out. Yeah.
So he was just a naturally curious person. And so I think he had a little bit of a technology bent too, even though he didn't get the engineering degree.
Yeah.
And he knew early on he needed engineers, and he found the best and brightest that he could.
Oh yeah, I mean Ben
Bauer,
Bauer, Ernie
yeah.
Sealer, all those folks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the world that I pay attention to in the background. I love reading all of that history. And Michael Pedersen, our historian, has sat down with me many times to explain things to me and tell me some stories and all of that good stuff. So we're turning 100 years.
Yes.
Which is, I'm so happy to be part of this moment, be at the NAMM show when we're celebrating 100 years. What do you see? Where do you see Shure in the next 100 years?
I have never had more confidence that there will be another 100 years. And the reason I say that is when I think about the almost 36 years that I've had with the company, I don't think I've ever seen us more strongly positioned for the future in terms of our technology prowess. And I think that we cover a broad array of technologies. And while we need to always pay homage to our past and understand that we are audio people through and through, and our superior audio is what people want from us, with the convergence of technology, we need to be open to thinking about other technologies and other broader solutions too. But I think when you think about blending the past and merging that with what the future holds for us, I just think we have a lot of opportunities and new markets to get into. It's really exciting.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, me
It's gonna
too.
be great. So what does the CEO of Shure, the person, do when you're not the CEO of Shure? What are things that you enjoy doing?
Okay, so you already know that I play with my band on
Yes.
Tuesday nights, and we have fantastic concerts throughout the course of the year. I'm an empty nester now, so I have my oldest son. He lives in the Chicagoland area, so I get to see him more frequently. My younger one, my daughter, is now out in the Bay Area of California, so I go out there and visit on occasion, right? Because she's not as easy to get to as she used to be. But they're both off in their careers. My son's also a mechanical engineer. My daughter is in marketing. So visiting them is important to me. But I'm also somebody who likes a lot of crafty things.
Okay.
So there was a period of time, for example, and I haven't been doing this lately, but I would hand make my own holiday cards every year, like stamping and paper cutting and all this sort of stuff, and try to make the most magnificent cards anybody had ever seen. And I got into a little bit of an era of trying to figure out oil painting, and that's kind of gone by the wayside. So now my next thing, I'm kind of interested in going back to watercolor painting again. Anything artistic, anything crafty. I just love that kind of stuff. People know me for getting the most beautifully wrapped presents that they could ever imagine. I don't just put paper on something and tie it with a ribbon. There's flowers. I have put live flowers on packages before as part of the wrapping.
Amazing.
I just try to come up with crazy ideas. Oh, I've put lights on presents before at Christmas time.
Has that ever become a competition with somebody else when you give presents to people?
Well,
which one is Chris's and which one is not?
They can always tell which ones are mine.
Got it. So there's no competition.
Yeah, we did. My husband's family did a white elephant kind of thing this year for gift giving, and I wasn't allowed to wrap it. They said Jeff has my husband. He has to wrap your presents for you because we'll know which ones are yours. It was supposed to be a surprise, right? So yeah,
That's great. So, in your history working with Shure, what was your personal favorite Shure product?
my favorite Shure product is the Shure SM58.
Okay.
It is Mrs. Shure's was the 55, and I've got to give her that's probably my second. But to me, the 58 embodies everything that is Shure. It's an iconic product. It's what you picture in your mind when you think of a microphone. It is legendary quality. It feels like it is the exact right weight. There is something so satisfying about how that product feels in your hand. It just it screams Shure when you hold it and when you speak or sing into it. And, it's a product that has been around for many decades, but it keeps getting better every year. But the stuff that we do behind the scenes doesn't change what is given to our customers. So I feel like that product embodies Shure. And you can get it in a wireless version. You can get a new technology version of it. It is Shure, the 58.
That's great. I'm going to follow that up with looking towards the future of Shure. What's your favorite product that we've made since the year 2000?
Since the year 2000, that would be the MXA Array series, because we took that engineering and audio prowess of the past and thought about aiming it in an entirely new direction and putting it into the world of conferencing. And it was a tremendously successful product before the pandemic, but now in a world where everybody works hybrid and you've got people in the meeting room trying to talk with people that are all over the world, it is the absolute solution that you need to have a productive meeting, because if the audio is bad, you're not having a meeting, right?
Right.
That is definitely my favorite product since 2000. And that came out in 2016.
Yeah, and that's a fascinating product. And I know when I first started working at Shure, which was only a few years ago, I was a musician, I was an audio engineer, I did all the things. That's how I knew Shure.
Yeah.
And when I started, I had no idea that we were that big in the conferencing world. First, I didn't even know conferencing audio was really a thing. I've never done corporate AV or anything like that. And when I realized how cool some of these products are, especially the array microphones, I mean, that is just, it's almost futuristic, the kind of capabilities that it has.
There's other applications that we can think about taking that technology into as well, right? So I think that's kind of like the next thing we need to figure out is where else can you take array technology?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of possibilities there.
Yeah, and I'm super excited about the future.
Me too.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for taking the time out to join us this morning. We have one more day of the NAMM show, and we have a lot of exciting things coming up, and we're looking forward to seeing what cool stuff Shure has in the future.
All right. Well, thank you, Yuri, for a great conversation. And it was nice to sit with you before all the rest of the crowd starts coming in here for day 3 of NAMM.